Podcast streams are activated.
We talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice.
After Practice with Lake Lewis starts now.
Welcome to another edition of the After Practice Podcast. Appreciate you as always for checking me out. And as always, you can watch this on YouTube. You can watch it on SportsJourney.com, and you can subscribe to it on pretty much all the major podcast carriers like Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, you name it, it's on there. So definitely appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch this and also subscribe to it. For myself, you can follow me on social media, on Twitter at Lake Lewis, on Instagram, on Facebook at Lake Lewis Jr. I am on Threads as well, Lake Lewis Jr. as well. And then, of course, on SportsJourney.com, so SportsJourney.com on all social media carriers as well. Today, we got to talk about, the position groups for this team. I've said it for a long time now that the Commanders have literally upgraded their roster as far as talent. If you go back to when Ron Rivera first came in and inherited a team that Jay Gruden had been fired from, and Bill Callahan was an interim coach, and we remember that, and then COVID hit. Ron Rivera has, if you look at this roster today from where it was 4 years ago, it's definitely a big upgrade in talent. So now with that talent comes, position groups that kind of jump off the map for you. And for me, the position group for the Commanders that I'm expecting big things from this year, surprisingly, everyone's going to think it's the defensive line. And yeah, they're one of their top position groups. They're number two for me. But number one, I'm going wide receivers. I just think there's something about today's game in the NFL where you need to score points in order to, really be productive. And I think Washington has the weapons on the outside now to really do some damage to opposing defenses and opposing defenses secondary. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuels, to me, are just, is there really a better trio of receivers in the NFL? And I'm not saying that because I cover the team, so I'm being biased. I really believe from a talent, pound-for-pound standpoint, they're one of the top three wide receiver rooms in the NFL, without question. And I know a lot of that's based on if Jahan Dotson lives up to what he was showing last year as a rookie before he got injured and he came back, but he was impact when he was on the field, an impact player. We all know Terry McLaurin was in the Pro Bowl. Curtis Samuels was a Swiss Army knife. We get that. So the wide receiver group for this team is loaded. A little bit later on, I'm going to bring in a good friend of mine, DJ Bland, and he'll come on and give you his top three position groups. So for the money right now, let me just break it down for you. My top three position groups for the Washington Commanders is at number 3. This is going to be interesting, but I think it's on paper because we haven't seen it come together yet, but I'm going to go secondary. I think the secondary as a whole, they went out and drafted Emmanuel Forbes, and I think the kid showed me a lot in minicamp and OTAs. I mean, the speed is there, the recovery is there, and he's a gamer. He's a guy that was out there competing with those three receivers that I talked about and didn't back down and made plays against them as well. Then you have the kid Martin from Illinois that they drafted as well. It's going to be more in your slot. So you pair them up with a Kendall Fuller. You pair them up with a Benji St. Juste. So now you've got a nice setup, as far as your corners. And you look at the safeties, and that's nothing to feel ashamed of either. They've got a really nice young secondary group led by Cam Curl. Cam Curl, to me, is a Pro Bowl talent. And I think that this year might be the year where you see it all come together for him and get that Pro Bowl nod. And then you look at who's next to him, playing safety, free safety, Derek Forrest. Derek Forrest came out of nowhere from Cincinnati and played really well, caused a lot of turnovers. So you have those two young guys back there. And then you have some guys, Reeves, who's also a special teams ace. You have some other guys that, can come in and spell your guys. So there's depth in that secondary. So to me, that's the number 3 group for this team. Number 2 group. I mean, come on, it could be number 1. I'm just going to go number 2 because I need to see Chase Young back, which I think he's going to be. I think he's going to have a nice bounce back season, but we need to see him back. And if he does come back and play Chase Young caliber football, which we saw his rookie year and which we saw him doing at Ohio State, this will be the number 1 position group. But for right now, it's number 2, and that's the defensive line. John Allen, Deron Payne, Pro Bowlers anchored in the middle of the field. You're not running the football on this team in the middle of the field. And when was the last time you saw a D tackle really pushing lines back and getting, double-digit sacks? Well, that's a Deron Payne type player. He's not an Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald special, but Deron Payne's in that next tier, and he's really good. So you pair him up with John Allen. Then on the ends, you have Montez Sweat, you have Chase Young, you have Fedarian Mathis, who's going to be plugged in the middle as well, coming back from an injury. You have Ridgeway. You have a whole bunch of other guys, that can really cause a lot of depth. I mean, they run 10 deep on that D line. So to me, that's your number 2 group. And then number 1, I said it earlier, it's the wide receivers. I just think that this group is special. I think if you can get some production from De'Ami Brown as your 4, or maybe the guy you brought in from Kansas City, who's more of a veteran that knows the offense, that'll help Eric Bieniemy implement his routes and get receivers where they're supposed to be. I think that this football team has 3 really, really strong position groups. Honorable mention to me is the running back room. I think the running backs have a chance to be really good as well. So we're going to have to see what they can do, when it all starts. So we'll take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to bring in my good friend, DJ Bland, right here on the After Practice Podcast with myself, Lake Lewis. All right, everybody, welcome back to the After Practice Podcast. And as promised, I have a good friend of mine, somebody that's been in the business for a while now and really needs no introduction, my good friend, DJ Bland, who's also from SportsJourney as well, and also has a great podcast, Not Bland Podcast. I like that, DJ. So what's going on?
Man, just looking forward to this NFL season. Got a lot of stuff going on with drag racing as they're starting to get close to the playoff time. So, man, it's a lot of good sports going on, and really excited about the team that we cover, the Washington Commanders.
Absolutely. And, I needed your expert opinion on, in your opinion, I've talked about it for days now, but in your opinion, what do you think are the 3 best position groups for this football team heading into 2023?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to look at the wide receiver core. Mm-hmm. It's led by Terry McLaurin, a guy that I will say that I saw before anybody else saw. And I said that Washington
at Senior Bowl.
Yep. Washington needed to get him, and he's shown up and shown out. You got Jahan Dotson, we are. And then you got Curtis Samuel, who's, I believe that 3 is good. And then they got a lot of complimentary guys like De'Ami Brown. I like the Dax, what is it? Dax Maline?
No, Dax Milne.
I love him.
He's gone.
Here we go.
Yeah, I just don't see how he can make the roster. I really don't.
Yeah. Because they have a lot of guys that they did pick up in free agency that are definitely better than him. And I think that's where you're going to get the round out of this roster. So I like what they have. And the next position I would say is definitely the defensive line. You look at those 4 guys up front. Chase, Allen, Payne, Sweat. Then you've got guys behind them that are easily rotating. I like John from the Dallas.
Yeah, you have Ridgeway. Yep. And also a name that everybody keeps forgetting is Fedarian Mathis.
That's who I was going to say next.
Yeah,
they've got players back there. Mm-hmm. They've got players. They've got guys that they can. Because we all know that they like to rotate guys in. And that's what they love to do. That's what Jack Del Rio loves to do. Keep guys fresh. And I think this is going to be another position that's strong for them. And that 3rd position, it's got to be corner.
Yeah.
I mean, you got St. Juice. They got Forbes. I mean, you could even add in the free safety position as well. I mean, you can just say defensive backs if you want to. Yeah. I think Fuller's going to be put in a better position this year. And he could find himself teeter-tottering on the way out too, man. But
I don't think so. And I was thinking literally, and this is what we do, people call in. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I literally I would say maybe right before the draft, I was like, okay, depending on what they do in the draft will tell me what they're going to do with Kendall Fuller. But then it hit me after they went out and took Emmanuel Forbes, after they went out and got Quez Martin. I mean, you start to think, okay, they're getting young guys in. Maybe that means he's going out and they'll save some money.
Right.
And it hit me. who's going to be that senior voice in that secondary room? You know, sometimes you need senior leadership. You need guys who've been there, done that to help the young guys. And it's a, you know, we know it's a cutthroat business, not just, you know, on the field, but for us in the media as well. But one thing we do know is that there's value in experience. And I think for them, and literally, I think for Kendall Fuller, that will keep him around. Outside of the fact that he did play well last year down the stretch, when they moved him from inside to the outside, that's when he started playing his game.
Yes. And, you know, he's scrappy. I think he fits a lot of what these young guys like to do. They're physical guys, especially St. Juice. We've seen the tape on Forbes and what he's likely to bring to this Commanders defense. You know, this is going to be a strong unit. I think coupled with the front half, there's going to be some tough times for offenses on the road and at FedEx Field to try to get up and down the field on this football team with those corners. And I think that those corners are going to be some ball hawks too, man. I really do. I think they're going to be getting a lot of picks from these teams that seem to think that, you know, there ain't much talent over here. Because I'm going to tell you, the national media ain't saying much over here.
Yeah.
They ain't saying much, and I'm okay with that. You know, it just shows the lack of homework that they do. But at the end of the day, I think also some teams read into those clippings, and they're going to sneak up on some people and show that we ain't nothing to play with.
Yeah, I actually do believe that. I think that this football team has a chance to be really good. So we talked about the wide receivers, which clearly, in my book as well, is the best position group they have. And I'm giving it a slight edge over that defensive front. And I know people are like, are you crazy? You have, you know, 2 Pro Bowlers and you have 2 guys on the end that have Pro Bowl talent in Chase Young and Montez Sweat. But I just feel like game changers just across the board. Their top 3 receivers can really change a game for you. And I think they are going to do that this year with an adequate quarterback getting them the ball in open space. So since we talked about the receivers, what are the other 2 position groups? I mean, did I kind of let the cat out the bag with the defensive line?
You know, I like our running backs. I like the running backs that they bring to this table. I think Brian Robinson, everybody is wanting to take Antonio Gibson and just toss him aside. Look, this is complimentary. This is what football is all about. And I think Brian Robinson and Gibson complement each other. I also think that they have a potential to either have one of these other guys in Jonathan Williams or Patterson or the Rodriguez Jr. kid fill in and be a part of this 3-man deal, because we actually have an offensive coordinator now that actually knows how to draw up plays and take advantage of skill sets of players.
And he shares the wealth. And if you look at Kansas City, their running back room, there was never that stout running back. And that's no disrespect to the backs in Kansas City, because I thought the rookie last year, Pacheco out of Rutgers, was really good. But that goes to show you, he was a rookie, and yet he's the guy getting the bulk of the carries in the playoffs and through the Super Bowl. That goes to show you that Eric Bieniemy's going to ride the hot hand. He's going to play the guy that's playing the best football. But if you look at Kansas City's running backs over the years, the Robinsons of the world, the Hyde, Hilairs of the world, you know, they have a lot of different backs, but they never had a guy that got featured. And I think by committee, that's how he features his backs. And I think that that's a good thing for Washington.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the skill set of these guys. They're not just running backs, but they're mismatch problems if you stick them out and decide that, hey, I'm going to put them out there and they're going to run a pass route. That's dangerous for any linebacker to have to line up and have to worry about a Brian Robinson or Gibson coming out of the backfield. And we know that fits Gibson's skill set very well. Yeah. So I think this is you looking at the wide receivers, looking at the running backs, Sam Howell has the ability to have some comfort because that's what you need. You need a nice little combination of things. And we all know the running game is very important. And I think coupled with having that solid wide receiver core, all he needs is his offensive line to do a job. They don't need to be spectacular. They don't need to set the world on fire. They just need to do a job. Come in, bring your lunch pails to work, and get to work and do your job. If you do your job, you give him enough time to get the ball to the weapons. We all know what's capable of this team when their weapons get the football. So I think this is a nice little combination here. And I know a lot of people worry about the offensive line, but I really don't think that needs to be a huge focus. You have an offensive coordinator that understands maybe what he has in his skill sets. He'll work around that, and he'll do what they do best, and also so that he can give his quarterback what he needs to operate and do what he does best, and that's getting the ball to the weapons, that's running the football, and having that that nice balanced attack to be able to hit the big play when necessary.
All right, so DJ, you're saying that you think that wide receivers, defensive line, and running backs are their three top position groups?
Well, my three top position groups were the wide receivers, defensive line, and the safeties. But I definitely also think that you could throw running backs in there as well.
Okay. All right. So look, I'm gonna put you on the spot before we wrap it up. And folks, right now, talking with DJ Bland, a good friend of mine, doing some great things. We go way back. He covered New Orleans Saints for Heavy.com. Also covered the then Redskins, with me when we were at USATODAY, and did a great job with that, and Heavy as well. Can't leave that out.
Yeah.
And we did something else. I can't remember the third. You were the man.
That was about.com.
About.com. Yeah, you remember. Yeah. So we had it out there. So, but yeah, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, because I'm gonna put you on the spot on two things. My last podcast, I talked about Sam Howell and how I felt like the number for him, the magic number to eclipse for them to have a really productive season would be 20 touchdowns. And I did that in comparison to guys last year that started as rookies and nothing was expected of them. And I had Davis Mills. Davis Mills had 17 touchdowns.
Yeah.
With no weapons around him in Houston. Justin Fields had 17 touchdowns passing. I know he ran for another 6, but 17 touchdown passes for a quarterback that people thought were going to struggle in the passing game. He didn't have a whole lot of weapons in Chicago. So I said, okay, new offensive coordinator that gets it, a lot of talent. The lowest amount of touchdowns I see Sam Howell throwing on the year is 20. And I'm going to put him at 20, and I want him to, obviously prove me wrong and get more. But I've seen people out there saying Sam Howell's going to throw for 4,000 yards and 30 plus touchdowns. That might be a little too much. I mean, you got to be realistic. So I'm asking you, what do you think his number is to really have a lot of success this year?
I think it's 20 to 25.
Okay. All right.
That'll be a nice happy medium. At 30 touchdowns and 4,000 yards, that would be amazing.
If he throws 30 touchdowns, they're going to give the Eagles a run for the divisional crown.
You got that right.
Like it is.
You got that right. That's a little lofty. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying. I know people question whether he can or will be the guy. Mm-hmm. I thought we saw enough in that Dallas game with the offensive coordinator that couldn't take advantage of his skill set with no tape and did a good job.
Exactly.
Despite having a handicapped offensive coordinator this year, this year, having someone that, Super Bowl caliber offensive coordinator understands what to do with his personnel and how to work that personnel, I think it's going to be good for him. And I think that's why you can say 20 to 25 touchdowns is good, because you start talking about 4,000 yards, you start talking about 30 touchdowns. That means that your offense is a little bit imbalanced. And that means you're throwing the ball more than you're running it.
You're throwing from behind, basically.
Yes. And I don't want him throwing the ball 30 to 35 times a game unless they're just simply just cooking folks because everything is just open and they're just able to have one of those days where you're just hitting on all cylinders and they can't stop nothing with your passing game. Other than that, I don't want to hear it.
And let's be upfront, DJ. I mean, basically, he's going to be a rookie. He played one game last year, so this is his rookie campaign. The best thing for a rookie, literally, is a running game and what? A defense. And those two things are right there in place for him to not have to throw for 30 touchdowns. I mean, I'm going to say it right now. If he throws for 30 touchdowns, we're going to see Kansas City A plus. I mean, you're going to see a Kansas City type of offense, and I don't think we're going to see that. But I do think that they're going to be a very successful offense. All right, so I got that. That's a good answer for me. And then the final thing to put you on the spot is I need a record for you. I've said that right now the number for me is 10. People think that's too lofty, and I say this because there were 4 games that you and I both witnessed last year as media. Being right,
Yep.
Vikings, they handed the game away. Poor play calling to run time off the clock. They go out and they 2 straight possessions, 3 and out from passing. You have a lead, run the football. Okay, the other game, you look at Cleveland, no excuse. That was a collective failure. There was no excuse for you to have Deshaun Watson's second game back after sitting out a year, basically, and he comes in and lights you up. That was poor. Right. And then, of course, the 2 Giants games. Those are games that you were the better team in all of those games, and you lost. So
against an average quarterback.
Yeah, average quarterback.
Average.
So with that said, if they had adequate play calling, if Eric Bieniemy was there last year, I do believe this was a team that made the playoffs, and there would have been 4 teams out the NFC East that made the playoffs. There's no reason for me to believe, even though they have a new quarterback, because let's face it, Carson Wentz was, nothing for me to write home about. And then Taylor Heineke, for everything that he did well, the spunkiness and the grit and determination, he was limited as far as what he could do from a skill set.
Quality number 2.
Absolutely. So now you look at Sam Howell, who to me is a combination of both the quarterbacks that they let go. He has a strong arm like Carson Wentz, and he's mobile like Heineke. He just has to put it all together. But the difference between him and those other 2 quarterbacks, we just said it. He's got a mind calling the plays for him. Finally, there's somebody adequate. So what do you think the number is for this team?
See, I said it was 10 last year. And like you said, we just talked about what they left on the table. And I'm definitely going to say 10 this year. I think it's 10. You could even possibly see 12 wins.
Wow.
But to be fair, 10 wins. The reason why I say 12 wins is this. If you take a couple of those games last year where you had a competent quarterback that was more accurate and made quicker decisions with the football, you might see a better game. Then you had games where they were ahead, and then your offensive coordinator goes into handicap mode and pisses down his leg and cost the team that was doing well and basically just reins them back in and causes the team to just fall apart and fail and lose. Right. So I really think 10 is easy for this team because you have competency. And I know people, talk about Ron and this and that. Look, you want what Ron is doing is what he needs to do. Now he has a guy that can run the offense. Sure, he's involved.
Well, it's just like Jack Del Rio. He's a figurehead. Right. Ron Rivera has done his job as far as bringing professionalism to the outfit. I'll give him an A on that. As far as coaching, C. And that's what he's been. He's been an average coach his whole career.
True.
Kind of below average if you look at the numbers. But he got a team to a Super Bowl and he had an MVP out that team. So I'm going to put him at a solid C+ as a coach. But as far as just structure, organization, professionalism, he's an A coach. Now, what he needs is stand out the way. And I saw it already in OTAs. I saw it in minicamp. He's off to the side and Eric Bieniemy is running the show, literally on offense.
That's how it should be.
Right.
And guess what? Guess who that reminds you of, people? That's Joe Jackson Gibbs.
That's what he did. He let his guys run the show. He was a figurehead. Sure, he there's a lot of things he involved himself in. Very smart coach. But if you look at the way Joe Gibbs ran the then Washington Redskins and the way he runs his NASCAR teams, exactly the same. And you look at what Ron Rivera is doing right now, he understands what he has in Eric Bieniemy. He knows that. Yeah.
So there's no need.
Got him. He knew that in order for this team to take the next step, they needed to bring in an offensive mind, and not just any offensive mind, but this is an offensive mind that's hungry. And he's hungry to prove to people that, Yeah, I mean, I was under Andy Reid. I get it. I was part of the meeting rooms. I get it. But his mind is, so is Doug Peterson, who's got Jacksonville cooking.
Yep.
We saw Nagy kind of wet the bed in Chicago.
Yeah.
There's been other guys come from that Andy Reid tree, and Andy Reid's always called the plays, but those guys didn't
Right.
get the same backlash as Eric Bieniemy, because Eric Bieniemy was also coaching Patrick Mahomes, who might go down as the greatest of all time. He's on pace to challenge Tom Brady.
Exactly.
Mantle.
He really is.
But you can't take away from the man's credit. He was in those meetings. He had some input in what they did. And to hear a Travis Kelce, a Patrick Mahomes, all these guys talk about Eric Bieniemy and what he meant to them, not just as a coach, but as a man, that's important for this football team that he's come to now. And I think you're going to see the Washington Commanders offense take the next step. I'm looking forward to it.
Agreed. I really am looking forward to it as well. This is long overdue. I think it's going to be great for a guy like Ron Rivera to see things start to come to fruition. He's had to juggle a lot. He's had to juggle a lot off the field. I think he deserves a lot of commendation for keeping this team together through all the riffraff that was going on outside of the locker room, and keeping his guys sheltered and focused on what was important, and that was what was going on the field in football. And now with new ownership coming in, that weight is now lifted that he's had to carry, along with being this team's head coach and being that guy for the guys on the field. Now he can just focus on that. That weight is now lifted. And I really hope that the fans come out the way that we know that this team used to be. And then the on the field stuff becomes the thing, and it goes back to what we know that this team can be, and that's a winning football team that's scoring touchdowns. And FedEx Field hopefully can be loud in a really tough place for opposing teams to come play this season. I am really excited about what I'm seeing so far with this Washington Commanders football team.
All right, well, DJ, before we wrap up, let everybody know where they can find you on social media and some other stuff that you have coming up, because you're a busy man right now.
Yeah, man, we are full tilt with the NHRA. We are working on the Not Bland show. We will be debuting that late July, early August, right in time for training camp. We're going to be right in the thick of things when it comes down to the NHRA Championship Drag Racing Series playoffs, as they will be coming down this home stretch, the last quarter of the regular season. So it's going to be a lot to talk about. And as always, you guys can hit me up, NotBland21 on Twitter, NotBland21 on Threads. I love talking shop with you guys, football, basketball, whatever it may be. I'm here for it. And I look forward to chatting with you guys. And it's going to be fun, man. What we have going here at Sports Journey, it's going to be fun this season.
All right, man. As always, appreciate you coming on and sharing that knowledge that everybody knows is there. Two brothers out here doing that thing. So
that's right.
Appreciate that. And, I'll get you back on real soon, my friend.
Yes, sir. Look forward to it.
All right. Take care now. Good seeing you.